Julie Sheehan, and I'm here to channel Bob Reeves, who can't be here tonight, who's, as we like to say, taking a hit for the team. You don't even want to know what he's doing on our behalf right now, but he's doing it on our behalf, and he loves this event. So he's just, of course, really taking an extra hit because he can't be here. And Susie Merrill, as you know, can't be here, although she is with you in spirit, as she said, and she has seen the readers read, and it's going to be a great show tonight. This is really the just culmination of the reading series, and she should be here taking credit for it because it was a tremendous series, and we're going to end on a really high note tonight with our MFA students reading from Work in Progress, and we get to see what everyone is up to. Before we start the reading, I would point out a couple of things. First, the readers will I'll introduce the first person, and then after that, the readers will introduce the next person. Readers, it's in huge type, 32-point type right here, so you can kind of see who the next person is in that moment. Don't step on your applause. But before we get to that, I want to let you know we have two little program related events we're doing tonight. One is at the end of the reading. We're going to do a sort of little teaser for something that's coming up that you might be interested in attending. And here at the beginning, we want to share a little bit about what's going on in some of the workshops where people are working, and I would bring up my colleague and the star poet Star, which is kind of redundant, but in a good way, to talk a little bit about what's going on in her workshop. Star Black, yay!
Thank you, Julie. Mentor extravaganza. I just want to invite you after the reading, while you're enjoying refreshments, to meet some extraordinary editors I've been working with. Billy Bunky has gathered a chapbook of imaginary poets. This is the project for the midterm. Imaginary editors writing imaginary bios about imaginary poets. All are the same person, and Billy Bunky is one of them who did Gathering Light. Also, Madison Baker did an anthology, Take a Meeting, and Victoria Burlington edited Licks to the Post Office, an imaginary anthology. And we're very fortunate, in fact, to have both Madison Baker and Victoria Burlington here. Another imaginary editor in my class is Britannia Lay, who publishes with Old Blighty Press. Pastel lines of translocation. Fortunately, Britannia is here, and this is the piece de resistance, published on Lulu, available on Amazon. It is called The Pulse of Poetics. This is the first edition. It's Oceans Press, a hottest press in town. And Samuel T.H. Chamberman happens to be here tonight. He's the general editor. And this is Where Has He Gone by Perry White, a Daily Planet first annual anthology. This just in. Could the editors please stand up so we can honor you? Yay! Bravo! Thank you very much. See them after the reading to find out about their poets.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. All right, so in the mingling period, definitely check out these anthologies and their imaginary editors. But now let's get down to the fun business of hearing from tonight's readers. I'm going to read everyone's names and then introduce the first person. We have Danielle Berg, Tula Holmes, Chris Bird, Ruth Boniface, Joe Labriola, Stan Cohen, Violet Turner, and Janet Demarest. We're starting off with Danielle Berg.
Thanks, guys. They didn't tell us what the order was going to be until right now. I'm first. Okay, so this is an excerpt from a YA novel, theoretically, about 8 pages in. The narrator is a 16-year-old boy. Magic took a magnificent crap this morning. Normally he circles around while ice forms on my nipples, but this time he went out there with a mission and fulfilled it. I've been taking care of Magic for 28 days, all of February. Sure, I could throw a coat on when I take him out, some pants even, but I don't, because I, like all the Jewish people who come before me, prefer to complain about my troubles and actually fix them. Like how my dad screws up his eggs and eats them anyway, saying, "This is your mother's job. Your mother makes the eggs. I paid for the pool. And keep it clean and cover it up every winter and patch up the holes in the summer. Your mother never appreciated all the work that went into that thing." On the first day of February, we woke up to a foot of snow and an empty kitchen. She took all the pans, the rice, the vegetables, even the pot of chicken soup she'd made the day before. Left her clothes and her bathroom stuff, but cleared the whole entire kitchen. It couldn't have been easy for her to get all that crap out of there, then drive away in a snowstorm. That's how bad she needed out. Now my dad's flipping eggs around on a pan I snatched from the restaurant, muttering in Yiddish that my mom's a whore whose eggs really weren't that good anyway. The thing about the pool is that for all my dad's skimming and heating and vacuuming and pH balancing, no one ever goes in it. I have cloudy kid memories of floating around in there with those little orange rafts on my arms. My mom would swim laps underwater, tugging at my feet from below. By the time I was old enough to really remember things, we weren't allowed to swim in there together anymore. I could swim with my brothers if I wanted to, but I didn't want to because Libby and Sandy would push me down to the bottom, and Shawley was too busy picturing what Rachel was wearing in the pool next door to try to save me. Have you ever seen a Hasidic girl's swimsuit? It has arms and legs. But the thing is, Shawley knew that underneath Rachel's hideous swimsuit was a body just as magnificent as the ones we saw in the summers when we walked down 50th Street. Funny how some memories are cloudy and others are more crisp than real life. One time there was this girl at Pigeon Plaza in a white tank top and she wasn't wearing anything underneath, and she walked right past me slow, like she knew. The first time my mom left was in June 2 years ago. That morning my dad found all her wigs floating in the pool like dead possums. There were 8 of them. He fished them out the way he does leaves or beetles. "Throw these in the trash," he said, chucking the soaking wet wigs over to me one by one. Lucky one of these didn't clog the filter. I stood there cradling the wigs until he wiped his hands on his suit and headed off to open the restaurant. Then my body moved all on its own, jumping down into the water for the first time in 9 years. The wigs floated up around me. I pushed them down, like the wigs were my little boy head and I was Libby or Sandy. Down, down, down to the bottom of the pool where it was cold as winter. I couldn't bring myself to throw her wigs away. I laid them out on the deck and rescued them from Magic's slobbery mouth, and 2 days later, when they were finally dry, my mom was back in the kitchen, a handkerchief on her head as though she'd only gone out to buy some milk. "Sit," she said, as if I were magic. I sat. She sat beside me. She smelled like someone else's house. Then she leaned her head on my shoulder. "Yosef," she said. "Yeah, Mom," I said, waiting for something, an explanation maybe. But she just said my name over and over, Yosef Chaim, Yosef Chaim. Every time she said it, her voice got quieter, but in my mind it was the opposite. By the time she fell asleep, it was so loud in my head, like I was all over the house, like I had turned into a gas and filled the empty rooms my brothers and sisters had moved out of. Rushing down the hallways, up the stairs to the second floor, then to the attic, where I could push against the small window and descend into the street and follow any girl I wanted into her house, her room, her pool. My mom left again 2 months later and came back after a week. Then 2 more times for just a few days, so by the time she really left, with the innards of our kitchen and the car, we didn't even pray she'd come back. We knew she would. But now it's been a month. Icicles hang from the doorframe above Bluma, who shows up every Friday afternoon with a giant rump roast that rivals her own unflappable head. She holds it out in some puke green pan, and all I can think about is this riddle I've heard about the perfect murder weapon. For years I avoided walking beneath icicles, thinking it's going to puncture my neck or something. And then I saw an episode of Mythbusters at Jake's house where they show it's next to impossible to kill someone with a household icicle. You'd need something heavy duty. There are so many things you learn about once and assume are true for the rest of your life. "Give this old bitch a hand, will you?" says Bluma, handing the roast over. I grab it and walk over to the kitchen table. Bluma sits, legs spilling around her once she makes contact with the chair. I think she's put on 10 pounds for every year I've known her. That would make her 150 pounds heavier than the first time she slapped my ass. Great-grandmas are good for two things, she'd say. Spoiling your sweet little tushy when you're good and slapping the ever-loving hell out of it when you're not. Blooma, like bacon, is not allowed beyond the front door. But she knows Dad's hours at the restaurant and times her visits accordingly. Heard anything, Blooma asks as she cuts up the roast. I shake my head. Nothing. And up next is Tula Holmes.
This is a part of a piece that I wrote when I returned from Burundi, Africa in January. And I'm sure you've all heard me wax on about Burundi, but if you don't know, it's a small heart-shaped country in Central Africa, south of Rwanda. And this piece is called A Country of Children. Ornella's toothy smile dissolved as we approached the Kabimba School Memorial. She asked if Innocent and I would consider skipping the visit altogether, but I needed to stand on the hillside and pray for the children. This was my first trip to Africa, and I had read all the books about Kabimba. Innocent and I stepped out of the old taxi, but Ornella refused to leave the back seat. The outline of the memorial that day melted into the blaring African sun as a wind whistled up from the valley. I moved aside to avoid crushing a black beetle that scuttled about looking for shade. Blowing clay dust coated the columns of the memorial's dome, my shoes, and the legs of two children who had stopped to watch a white person emerge from a ramshackled cab. On this spot, 15 years earlier, the Hutu children from the Kabimba boarding school were inconsolable. The Tutsi military had assassinated the first Hutu president, killing the hopes of the Hutu majority. The angry students bound their Tutsi classmates with ropes and herded them together. Joy spilled into the air as the child captors waved machetes and tree branches while they danced up the rocky road toward the only gas station. The syncopated beat of drums and the accompanying chants gave the afternoon a festive feel, like the performance of African drummers at a wedding reception. More than 100 children were corralled in the gas station with no way of escape. Someone lit a tree branch and pushed it through a hole in the roof. And the sweet smell of eucalyptus blended with gasoline and burning flesh. Screams and drum songs floated across the valley, and all but two of the captive Tutsi teenagers were burned alive that day. I think that Ornella and Innocent are both Tutsi, but I'm not really sure. On my first day to Burundi, I was instructed never to ask that question, told never to say the names Hutu or Tutsi. There are tall people and there are short people. That was all I needed to know. Perhaps it's thought that by denying the existence of tribes, the people of this country would consider themselves as simply Burundian. Perhaps the history of violence and hatred would disappear in the wind. But when you stand at that memorial, you understand that if pain is denied a voice, it hides like a cancer beneath the skin, just waiting to surface. Innocent and I walked up the stone steps and stood beneath the memorial's dome. The cellophane wrappers of flower bouquets crackled in the wind. This was a holy place. I put my arm around Innocent's thin shoulders, and we looked out over the hillside to a cloudless blue sky and coffee plants growing in the distance. "I'm sorry," was all I could say. Innocent's long arms hung like limp drapery, and he began his story. He was 5 when the violence began, when the night sounds of crickets were replaced with machine gun fire. Innocent's family abandoned their home in the capital and went to live with an uncle in the mountains, 32 relatives crowded into his uncle's 3-bedroom house. They felt safe in the countryside, far from the violence that plagued the cities. He paused to stare at the mountains in the distance and then continued as if reading from a script. Early one morning, 3 large thuds woke the children. Innocent's father rushed into the living room and ordered him to leave with his sister and cousin, ordered him to go quickly outside and hide in the fields, ordered him to stay there until all was quiet. Innocent cried. He didn't want to leave without his mother. But his father was adamant and jerked him up by the arm, pushing him toward the back door. "Run," was all he whispered, as the 3 children fled into the gray light. The children hid in the cornfield for most of the morning until all sound stopped. "You couldn't even hear the cardinals," said Innocent, crossing his arms. When the children returned to the house, they discovered large boulders rolled against the front door. "We went through the back door," said Innocent. Everyone had been hacked to death by machetes. I thought of my own sons and how they would feel in the same situation. But Innocent's mother was alive, and when he lifted her head, she asked for water. "Did you know that you get thirsty when you're dying?" he asked. "No," I said. "I gave her a drink of water and then she died." I had no response. As Innocent and I stood listening to the wind and the crinkling cellophane, my eyes focused on a small bunch of pink and white flowers growing like a wedding bouquet near a boulder. Then I remembered what day it was. While I stood there, my ex-husband was getting remarried at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco. I said a prayer that flowers cover the hillside, cover the ashes of the past that had settled like a pall everywhere. "I had to forgive them," Innocent said. I stared at our 2 dark shadows that merged together on the clay ground. His shadow was tall and mine short. We stood there for a while before we walked back to the taxi. "We can leave now," I said to Ornella as I slid into the cramped back seat of the cab. She didn't look up when we drove away. We passed through the eucalyptus forests and coffee fields to an orphanage in the mountain town of Gattega, where 34 children were waiting to see their friends, Innocent and Ornella. And they were waiting for me, too. While I was in Burundi, I did not cry for Ornella or Innocent. Theirs are the story of every Burundian orphan who somehow manages to survive. When I said goodbye, Innocent had a Tutsi toddler clinging to his leg and a Hutu baby cradled in his arms. No, I never cried for the children of Burundi. I imprinted them in my mind, silhouetted against the glowing red African sky. No, I cry for myself and for all of us who watch in silence. Thank you. Our next reader is Chris Bird. My roommate.
Sorry, Chris couldn't be here, so I'll be reading for him. Chris. These are the first pages of my novel. The narrator is a 31-year-old handyman named Curtis Dogweiler, and his friend the Fly is an aging hippie who needs a liver transplant, and they're growing marijuana in Curtis's grandmother's cellar in order to pay for the transplant and earn enough money so Curtis can buy the house from his dying grandmother, that his dying grandmother has willed to the church. I see what looks like a Jehovah's Witness standing at the far end of my porch, banging the hell out of my aluminum storm door. She waves and clasps her hands together before I realize it's Miss Williams from the church. I flick the hook from its eye and swing the door out and say, "How you doing?" My greeting is more a reflex than a question wanting an answer. I don't actually care how anyone is. She steps up and bounces past me through the porch and into the front hall before I'm finished rubbing the boogers from my eyes. "Blessed," she says, with a look skyward as if God's winking down at her. She's blessed, all right. Section 8 blessed. The government rents an apartment for her and her entire family through a voucher program. My boss, Ed Cobb, is their landlord. He's a residential contractor. It's been 10 years since he bought the place and the squatters were tossed out. He already owned the 2 buildings next door. They once served as army barracks during the war. Now they house Section 8ers in the nonprofit offices of Thursday's Child. "It's a shame that bell doesn't work, Curtis. I feel awful making that racket, what with Gertrude's condition. And I think, doesn't stop you from giving it a few good thwacks at this ungodly hour of the morning. It's not even 11 o'clock. Miss Williams likes to suggest things for me to fix around the house when she visits. This business about the bell's been going on for the last 6 months. I'll put it on the list, I tell her, but I have no intention of fixing it. Bells are too pleasant sounding and I don't want to encourage visitors." Miss Williams's eyes follow cracks in the plaster walls up to the cracked spiderwebbing across the ceiling. I swear the woman carries around a tape measure to calculate the square footage of rooms while my back is turned. The church plans to flip my home into a halfway house, and I can't help but think that's exactly what Patchogue needs. One more place to house the lame and degenerate. How's the slogan go? Give us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses longing to be free. Patchogue is a fairly sizable village on the south shore of Long Island, located between Blue Point to the west and Bellport to the east. It was called Milltown in the mid-19th century as it was filled with various grist and lumber mills. Back then it was a prime exporter of local shellfish to cities in Europe. Gil Smith, a local legend, built boats for racing in the first half of the 20th. People came from all over to have their boat built by the wizard of the Great South Bay, and for the races. They say Gil Smith was to boat building what Chippendale was to furniture. Of course, more than the name has changed over the last 150 years. The bay's been raked clean, the mill's replaced by parking lots for Ultimate Fitness and Briarcliff College, and most of the windows on Main Street have signs that read, "Se habla español." And then there are the halfway houses down by the water where I live with my 85-year-old grandmother, who I lovingly call Gert. The doctors say Gert's lymphoma is a result of years of smoking. She'd spend most days in bed thanking the good Lord I had no idea what she was going through. They say a little suffering is good for the soul. Maybe that's what we tell ourselves to justify the pain. If you ask me, Gert needed to be sick. It's too hard being healthy. The world expects action when you're fit. When you're sick, the world opens doors for you, bends over backwards for you. The world comes calling but keeps enough away. Yes, the world doesn't expect much of you when you're in bed. I liked the flu as a kid. When I was sick, that was as bad as it was going to get. I wrapped myself in it. Same thing with the fly and his bad liver. He'd been suffering the effects of hepatitis C for the last couple of years. Claimed he had gotten Lyme disease from a deer tick while harvesting his pot plants. He never did anything to help himself, though. Doc told me he had to stay clean. No smoke, no booze. But the fly failed several piss tests. Lost the insurance. Not that the Medicaid would have covered the expense, but at least it was something. I had suggested he quit nickel and diming it and grow a major crop to pay for the transplant, with my help, of course. He was hesitant at first, what with the labor involved and his Hep C and all. Doc had even given him an oxygen tank, said he wasn't getting enough O2 to the brain, but I didn't need a medical degree to tell him that. Miss Williams sniffs at the air in the front hall, trying to place an odor I myself barely notice anymore coming from the cellar. What she smells is supernova. It's a high-grade strain of chronic cannabis known for its ability to be cultivated indoors. The smell is a combination of homemade chocolate chip cookies and freshly cut grass. I was wondering if you could stop by later and have a look at those cabinets, she says, and sniffs again. I'm having trouble getting a hold of Mr. Cobb. Cobb wants nothing to do with Miss Williams as long as he's getting that check from the government. He's been telling me for weeks to fix her cabinets, and I'll get there when I find the time, but I'm in no hurry. Not for $1.20 a day. I asked Cobb why he doesn't throw them out, but he's been talking more about God now that he's getting older. Believes his good deeds are his way into heaven. He even attends church more regularly when he's not bidding on jobs. I turn and make for the kitchen, and Miss Williams says, I see that knee is acting up again. and I sense excitement building in her voice. Hazel Williams always sounds as if she's preaching from the pulpit. She's referring to my limp. Most times I don't even notice it. It doesn't hurt. I mean, I don't feel it. I just sort of slip into the limp without realizing. Funny how it comes and goes like that, she says, and I wonder what she's getting at. I could pray over it if you'd like. Prayer is their answer for everything. Someone stole your car? Pray to God. Your husband left you? Pray to God. You need 5 numbers plus the mega ball? Pray to God. Ah, what the hell. Please, God, remove this woman from my house. When I open my eyes mid-prayer, Miss Williams is kneeling on the floor with her hands around my leg, murmuring. It sounds like gibberish before I realize she's speaking in tongues. It's bad enough half the town can't obla inglés. Now I've got to suffer this incoherent nonsense. She's really praying up a storm down there. Would she stop if I got a hard-on? Perhaps if I tell her I'm impotent, she'll consider it a miracle. Lazarus rising from his tomb. Thank you. And our next reader will be Ruth Boniface.
Okay, this was written in Jules Pfeiffer's Humor and Truth class. And I just want to say one of the really interesting and cool things about this whole program is this cross-pollination among the disciplines. And so I wrote this little humor piece, and that turned into a scene in my drama class, and it was read by actors, and then brought back, and then it was 2 scenes and sort of a 1 act, and then reincarnated again into the humor piece. It's everything but a poem at this point, and that's a possibility. You never know. So anyway, it's called Every Dog Has Its Day. I'm trying to ignore the mongrel next to me, but he keeps sniffing my butt. Listen, I need to be alone, I tell him. First timer? He asks. That's right. I knew it. Dog breath from your nerves. He pushes a mint my way. I don't do sugar, I tell him. My master allows me only. Master? What's with this slave jive? The man is what you call him. The mutt rolls his eyes and turns away. I think he's offended. I say nothing. Hey, kid, the name's Jake, he says finally. What's your offense? I hesitate and start whimpering. Come on, kid, they say every dog has his day and yours is come. I say, well, you see, I was playing fetch with this neighbor's kid. I think maybe it got a little rough, but I didn't mean it, honest. I didn't. It wasn't my fault. I mean, I'm just going to go up there and tell the judge and explain. Jake gets in my face. Did you growl? He asks. No. Well, maybe a little. Bare your teeth? Never. We are almost nose to nose. Okay, maybe once. Why? Because if they testify that you growled and bared your teeth, then it's curtains for you, kiddo. My ears perk up. I stare at him. Is he saying what I think he's saying? Snarling dog plus kid? 0 tolerance. Don't worry, it's painless. They give you an injection. I eat the mint. Like I said, kid, you won't feel a thing. Not like back in the day. Ever hear of Old Yeller? Blasted him right between the eyes with a shotgun. Ugh. And his crime? He was sick. Yeah, I'll say it. Sick as a dog. Rabies. Heavy stuff, but hey, it's a disability for Christ's sake. I mean, where's the mercy? Poor bastard. Panting by now, I ask Jake if he has any more mints. He ignores me. He's looking at a white poodle wearing a fuchsia collar near the bench. Fifi, he sighs. Caught running the streets again without a leash. Or a license. Big fine this time. Love that sassy bitch. Why don't you say hello, I suggest, deciding some small talk might take my mind off my own troubles. She won't even look at a mangy cur like me. You know anyone else here? Are you kidding? I know everybody. See that lab in the front row? Serial car chaser, 4th offense. He just can't stop. Outpatient rehab didn't do shit. I think he needs residential treatment. But who listens to me anyway? I'm just an old dog. I tell him the distinguished canine to our left looks familiar. His grandfather was Rin Tin Tin, spittin' image, he says. The TV star? Whoa. Don't be too impressed, kid. He had the best handlers money could buy, and they had a lot of dough. Trust me, got away with stuff you wouldn't believe. Humped everything in sight. Knocked up Lassie. Today, he'd have been charged with statutory rape and classified as a sex offender. I'd heard the rumors, but until now, I had dismissed them completely. Jake's really got his nose to the ground. I decided to press him further. So, Jake, are those stories, the stories about the Taco Bell dog, are they true? Jake lifts his paws and whispers. Runs in the family. Although I had to say that despicable little bugger had it coming to him. He looks around the courtroom and shakes his head. What a bunch of losers. One petty barking offense after another. Boring. Now, baying at the moon, that would be something. But you don't see too many hounds here anymore, just a bunch of yapping little designer dogs that can't keep their traps shut. Rhinestone collars, little sweaters, boots, all bling and no brains. Just gas them all, that's what I would do. I move away. I can't believe he just said that. I guess it really is a dog-eat-dog world, I tell him. You're an idiot, Jake says. I try to ignore the insults, but I may feel my heart racing. It must be well over 120 beats a minute. Maybe I'm having a stroke. To relieve the tension, I stretch, lift my hind leg, and start scratching my ear. Big mistake. The judge's hammer comes banging down like a cannon. Now my ears are ringing. Order in this courtroom. All feet on the floor. He is peering over his reading glasses. And sit. I obey at once. That's a good dog, the judge says. I wag my tail and give him my best goofy dog look, hoping to curry favor when my turn comes. You wuss, Jake mutters. Listen, Jake, I was wondering what I'm in here for, right? He leaps to his feet, hair bristling on his back, and starts howling, burying things, lots of things, all over the neighborhood. Things go missing, I bury them. They drag my sorry rump in here all the time, but they can't prove nothing. Can't nail me on anything but digging a hole. Got caught digging a hole. The goods? Well, I ain't telling. Jake looks me in the eye. The judge is banging the gavel like crazy now. I hit the ground and instinctively roll upside down. Jake is glaring at me. What the fuck? Listen, kid. I avert my eyes. They don't call me leader of the pack for nothing, kid. He yells at the judge and I crawl under the bench. Hey, you motherfucker, I run with the big dogs. I can feel Jake's breath. He's growling in my ear. You want in? Let's blow this joint. I look at the judge, the door, the judge, the door. The word euthanize pops into my head. And the next thing I know, Jake and I are making a beeline for the door, around the corner, and a dog leg left under the fence. A dog's life at last. In large font is Joe Labriola.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. And I wanted to give a very big special thanks to my poetry professor, Star Black, for giving me, for a wonderful introduction and for giving me the idea for my book, which I'll conveniently be reading from tonight. The Pulse of Poetics, an anthology of the evolution of the poetic form, Volume 3C, Modern Poetry, 1989 to 2011, first edition. So some of you might be wondering, well, what the hell does that mean? Basically, well, some of you here tonight know who I am, but what some of you might actually not know is that in this anthology, I'm actually many different authors, including poet and blogger Susan LeBlanc, the deceased British rapper Mark's ex-con, and the world-renowned anthropologist and creator of the Pulse of Poetics anthology series, the illustrious Wilson von Baron. Basically, I've created this collection of modern poetry, and it might appear like any other collection. The difference is that the book's publishing company, its authors, its contributors, and poems were all created by me. So while you might think that you're reading the poetry of an unknown New York City graffiti artist of the 1990s, or a Scottish clockmaker, it's actually my way of writing a very, very collection of modern poetry using some very distinct voices of fictional authors. It's a really interesting spread of modern poetry, I think, and it's available now on ebook. Kindle on Amazon.com for 99 cents, which you can't get a cup of coffee or a pack of gum for 99 cents, for God's sake. So it's a deal. Find my book. And it's available on lulu.com as well. That's lulu.com, which is a great site for any authors in the audience who are looking for print copies of their book. It's a very cheap way to get your own book out there. So tonight I'm going to read a brief excerpt from the editor's note in the beginning of my book, where the editor discusses the purpose of poetry as he sees it, and he ends here with an allegory to sum up his ideas. And this is another voice of mine in disguise. So this is from the editor's note by the Pulse of Poetics general editor Samuel T.H. Chamberman. If you were walking down the street one sunny July afternoon, the summer sun searing from its apex above, and a man, an old man, wearing all black robes with no limbs showing, no discernible form other than his hunched shape, and your expectations of a hunched figure in dark robes on a hot July day, if he came up to you and he coughed and he said, "Why, you look thirsty, my young friend. Would you like a drink?" And then he pulled a small black cloth canteen out of his side pocket with his hidden hand, and he held it out, and you are dying of thirst, mind you, because it is the middle of July and you are hot as hell out in this searing summer sun. You might hesitate for a moment. Several thoughts might run through your hazy head. Who is this man? Where is he from? How did he get here? Why? And what is in this bottle? So you look at him for a moment and you might actually ask, well, what's in the bottle? And he might actually answer you, why, water, of course. What else on a hot July day? And so you might be just dying of thirst, just dying for a drink, and so you might just say, wow, thanks, sir. And then you take the bottle dangling over the steam-dried blacktop between you two. But then he might tell you, right as you give the bottle a little shake, it's about half full, he might say, stop, wait. You stare at his dark-raised hand as he continues. You should know before you take a drink that if you take even one sip, just a single sip, that I'll have to tell you about your future. So you might stop and stare and even think, well, who the hell cares? But still you stop and wonder and you ask instead, well, what do you mean? You are still real thirsty, remember? And he might answer you, your future, your fate. And you might mumble out loud, my fate, because you do not really believe in that kind of stuff. But here this guy all in robes in the hot July sun is telling you this, so it seems that right now it might be worth just listening to him for one uncomfortably warm moment. Yes, he says, I'll tell you where you're going. And you might think, well, that's just ridiculous. I can always just turn and run away. But as you think how to just have a drink and just turn and run away, you realize that he is just smiling at you, this plausible old man beneath his concealing robes. You cannot see his face or his eyes or his lips hidden, deep set somewhere in those shadowed folds. But you can tell that he is smiling by the way that his head is crooked, by the way that his pause waits, how he just stands there, shrouded in the sweltering July sun. It's hot as hell out here, you think. And so you just smile and take your drink. Thank you. And please welcome our next speaker, Stan Cohen.
Hi there. I am Stan Cohen, and I'll be reading for myself. This is from Jules's class. It was an exercise in counterpoint, so the first piece is called Revenge, Stan Cohen style. You know I will stop at nothing. You know I'm coming for you. Watch for it. It's coming. Do I have a plan? I have a plan. It starts with you knowing I'm coming. Every time you cross the street, every time you pick up a phone, every time you take a fork full of food into your mostly moist mouth, think of me. Am I there, or even more, was I there? You think about that, because I will not let this go. Will you see it coming? That I do not know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I'm already happier knowing that you'll be thinking of me every moment of every day. And in your sleep, will you find peace, or will you wake up in sweats thinking of me? I don't know. But this is just the beginning of my revenge. I have patience, you know I do. But that's the beauty of living in the moment. Past, present, and future won't be so well defined for you anymore, because I'm here. I won't let go. I will get you back. Maybe I've already set the trap. Maybe you've already fallen into it. Maybe it'll be today or tonight. Maybe it'll be tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. Maybe it'll be every day for the rest of your life. This is my friend, and you are the enemy. From here on in, I get to watch you shaking every day, knowing I'm watching and I'm going to get you back. My revelation is that I have this power over you. Is that revenge enough? Nah. But it's a start. I am invigorated. I am pumped. It's intoxicating having this power over where and when I will make you pay. I will be there. Right now, I will just play on your fears. Is that enough? Nah. Well, it is for now, but it ain't over. I'll bring you to tears. Is that enough? I want it all, whatever all means, and I'm going to get it. Before I'm done, you're going to know you made a mistake. When I'm done, you're going to know you paid for that mistake. You thought you could hurt me? You thought you could make fun of me? Now you know. You created a firestorm that you can't control. I'll stay positive. I'm positive you will suffer. I'm positive I'm going to get you back. Your life will never be the same. You're going to have to live with the curse of your actions. There's winning and there's losing, and in life you have to deal with both. But you know me, and you know with me there's no quitting. I'm a unique, special man, and God will take care of me, and now God will take care of my revenge. To err is human, to forgive divine. Unfortunately for you, I'm only human. I am not going to forgive. I'm going to get you back. I'm going to have my revenge. Ain't life grand? Now I have another side of me that I want to show everybody. This is Love in the Immortal Words of Stan Cohen. Love is all around, but when I'm with you, it's in front of me. Love is for everyone, but when I'm with you, I give it only to you. Love is patient, but I feel great urges that move me when I'm with you. Love is a kiss, but with you, it doesn't stop there. Love is romance, but with you, it's also comfort, trust, and ease. Love is everything, but it's not the end, it's just the beginning. Love is like a dream, but with you, reality is even better. Love is the desire to be desired irresistibly, but with your love, I have no other desires. Love is the belief in all you say and do, but with you, you can be silent and still, and I'll still love you. Love is for all you are, but as to you, love is what I am because you chose me. Love is not being able to keep my mind on anything, but with you I find myself energized and focused on everything that comes to mind. Love is blind, but it has opened my eyes to the beauty of the world. Love is art, but you are more than a masterpiece. Love is a sign that spring is not far away, but you are in season 12 months a year. Love is the reason we are on earth, but with you I feel I am in heaven. Love is missing each other when we're apart, but with you I'm fulfilled no matter what we each are doing. Love is like music to your ears, but with you I sing love songs even though I can't sing. Love is enjoying all we do, but with you love is enjoying life even when we're not together. Love is sharing one heart, but with you love is making my heart so large it's too big for just me. Love is a sigh, but with you love is breathing in and out and again and again. Love is a sign, but with you, love is an internal compass that all is perfect in the world. Love is feeling each other's heartbeat, but with you, loving is having a heartbeat. Love is letting you win, but then I love that I don't sleep with a loser. Love is thanking you for coming into my life, but with you, it's the feeling that it was meant to be. Love is that first kiss, but with you, love is every kiss since. Love is not taking note of those wrinkles around your eyes, but as to you, I think you look so much better without makeup than with. Love is preparing breakfast in the morning, but with you I feel blessed just waking up next to you. Love is having that shoulder to cry on, but with you, even the saddest movie is filled with joy. Love is finding a rose on the car seat, but with you, love is leaving it there. Love is counting to 10 before shouting, but with you, it's never needing to count to 1. Love is looking across the room at a cocktail party and seeing you, but with you, it's the pride of walking in and out together. Love is knowing you'll do the right thing. With you, it's knowing you'll do the right thing for others too. Love is being funny, but with you, it's knowing you get it. Love is a many wondrous thing. It starts with you. Love is hopeful. You are my hope. Love is confidence. You give it to me. Love is imagination, making it all come true. Love is a dream. I keep pinching myself that we're together. Love is a walk in the woods and on a dewy morning with you. Love is a sunshiny day. You are my star. Love is beautiful. By definition, therefore, you are love. Love is feeling. I love feeling you. Love is exciting. You excite me. Love is assuring. I know I excite you. Love is a bond. You are my glue. Love is an active power. You move me. Love is in the air when you are in my thoughts. Love is finding your perfect partner. You are more. You are my other half. Love is a miracle that only you can see, but when we're together, everyone sees us as that loving couple. Love is the opposite of revenge. I am your avenger. And now we have my friend Violet Turner.
Have a stool, huh? This is a memoir that I wrote just for tonight. The problem with writing memoir this semester has been that you keep remembering and I can't stop. This is called Feeling Up. Yes, that kind of feeling. Mary Jo dragged on what remained of her Marlboro, then, with the filter pinched between her bitten nails, she flicked it into the grass. Know how you get pregnant? She asked Debbie. Yes. So, how? I asked. I know how. Debbie was defensive. Then tell us, I said. Mary Jo threw her head back, her chin pointed towards Debbie's chest. You get felt up. That's not true. Yes, it is, I said, lighting a cigarette. Mary Jo made a V with her fingers. I took out another one, lit it off the end of mine, and handed it to her. She let it dangle from her thin lips. I inhaled deeply, then slowly breathed out smoke. We both stared at Debbie. You didn't know that? I asked. She nervously picked at the nubs of her blue and white gingham bikini top. She'd been wearing it and her cutoffs all summer. That's why we needed this intervention. We were going to hitch to Bayshore, see if Keith got Day Tripper, his pink Corvair, running, so we could look for Dennis Gay. Rumor had it he and Roxy had broken up again. I had an interest in going, and in Debbie covering up. Mary Jo was just exercising her top girl in the triumvirate status, an honor she'd earned as the prettiest and meanest. Change, she said. Debbie shook her head no. Then you're not going, I said. A few weeks earlier, after the first breakup, Dennis and I had made out. When Roxy confronted him, I retreated, but I heard her cry, I dropped out of high school to be with you. You said she was jailbait. By the time we left, Dennis and Roxy were hugging, but he warmly smiled at me over her shoulder. When Mary Jo explained what jailbait was, I was baffled. I hadn't done anything close to what it would take to send a boy to jail. Still, I had to prove myself worthy of someone as decent as Dennis. So we were going to comport ourselves as ladies. Plus, I already had Roxy for competition. I didn't need Debbie's breasts, too. Debbie's breasts had been making us crazy all summer. She couldn't pass a reflective surface without stopping to gape at her two swells. Her hands would scoop them up from below, creating the illusion of abundant cleavage, and then she'd twist her hips and pause in a staccato sway. When we ignored her, she'd utter some inanity. I was walking up Main Street, and all the cars honked. I wonder why. At first, out of sympathy because her mother was a drunk and her father was long gone, we tolerated it. But like all junkies, this habit was insatiable, and now inert from the muggy weight of August, we'd become perpetually irritated by her relentless neediness. Well, I wouldn't worry. I'm sure you're not pregnant, Mary Jo said. None of us have ever been felt up. What do you care? Of course, that wasn't true. We all had. My first and only was Bruce Graham. Bruce had black hair, royal blue eyes, and was from Bayport, not Sayville, which made him, and me by association, cool. We dated nearly a year, and for his birthday, I bought him an ID bracelet as a gift to assist him in asking me to go steady. Making out in the balcony of the Sayville movie theater, he slipped it onto my wrist. I decided in advance that this was the night I'd let him feel me up. But suddenly, nothing. Frustrated, I guided him. He awkwardly thanked me. I'm wearing my sister's bra, I whispered. Why? He asked. The answer was, because I'm an idiot who doesn't know when to shut up. But instead I said, because it's padded. Decades later, we met in a grocery store, and I reminded him about that night. I never touched you that way, not you, he said, with a reverence that should have been received with my silence. Of course, I kept right on going, providing every humiliating detail. Finally, he said, I'm sorry, I did a lot of drugs in the Navy. I just don't remember much. We faked hugged, but as I walked towards the door, he called out, thank you for teaching me to play chess. I smiled. He'd remembered my more substantial asset. You can't get pregnant that way. Debbie's voice was shrill now. Think about it, I reasoned. Why would anyone care otherwise? Nobody makes a big deal about a guy touching your neck or your legs. So why is it a big deal if he touches your breasts? Because that's how you get pregnant, Mary Jo placed the period perfectly. Debbie covered up, our thumbs out, we got an easy ride. But as I sat in the back of this stranger's car, I wondered, why were boys so obsessed with breasts, and why the urgent need to touch them? No one, except Kevin Perry, who swore if I didn't alleviate his erection, he'd die. I didn't, yet he still lives, had tried to touch us between our legs. And no matter how out of control or high we were, no girl would risk the rumors of letting a boy go there. The few who did taught us to keep our legs shut, because boys couldn't do the same with their mouths. The trip to Bayshore was a bust. Day Tripper was up on blocks. Dennis remained Roxy's forever. Please, Freddie begged me. Mary Jo and I had met a bunch of boys at an Alice Cooper concert at Comac Arena. They were camping out in the wooden shells of a future high-end Bayshore development, so we went along. Freddie was lean and tan, with blonde Medusa curls. He was sitting on his Indian jacket, huffing carbona from a paper bag. Here, he offered sweetly. What is it? I asked. Cleaning fluid. It was a stupid way to get stoned, but he was so cute. One superficial breath and the room was spinning. Freddie gently lowered me down to his coat, and we kissed. We kissed a lot that night, but when he tugged at my shirt, I firmly let his hand away. Then the begging began. And so it went all the way till morning, when Freddie finally jumped up and cried, "Can't I even have one feel?" I just didn't get it. Had he actually believed a kiss and a little carbona could cause me to lose control? But as befuddled as I was by all this, one certainty emerged. Whatever it was about breasts that moved boys to anguish and tears mattered far less than the fact that I had them and they didn't. And now, here's Janet Demarest.
Hi, everybody. If any of you have been in Star Black's Forms of Poetry class, you'll know that she has a very distinct talent of giving the most unusual prompts for poetry. And one of the prompts that she gave us this past year was to write a nursery rhyme as a jazz poem. So I am going to start the audience participation portion of this show. If you could please assist me by snapping your fingers, just like that, we'll be able to do this jazz poem just fine. And the name of the poem is Diggin' Jack. Hey Jack, ho Jack, you know Jack. Fat Jack, slow Jack, you know Jack. Jackety Jack, the stratity sprat. A bebop, a loop-bop, a shoop-a-doot-dow. He couldn't eat fat, man, he didn't know how. A bebop, a loop-bop, a jack-a-dap-dow. His wife was a big gal who couldn't eat lean. A kinda wanna ding-dong, a doopy-doot-dow. So she sat and chewed the fat and became Jackie's queen. A gobba-dabba-doo-bop, a soupy-doot-dow. They both sat together and devoured a steak. She ate the carcass and he ate the plate. Then they both left together about 7:45. A bebop, a loopy-dop-dow, and stop. Oh, I wonder what Jack's eating now. Thank you. When my children were growing up, we lived in bucolic paradise. It was a beautiful little neighborhood in North Merrick. Suburban perfection, perfect houses, perfect lawns. But, you know, I always felt that there was something simmering underneath the surface. And, of course, there was. And so this is a horror poem that I wrote in narrative form in honor of Sycamore Lane. The trees grow lush and deep shade green on Sycamore Lane, on Sycamore Lane. The picket fences white and clean on Sycamore Lane. Each garden grows with flowers gay where babies doze and branches sway and doggies bark and children play on Sycamore Lane. Each day is manicured and neat and children run on joyful feet. Their laughing voices only fade when Mama calls them, "Dinner's made." The street lamps light at 10 to 5. The dads with suits and mail arrive. A white Lexus up every drive on Sycamore Lane. The street is long. Its end is where a house sits silent. No one dares go near that strange and dark enclave. It sits there silent as the grave. For years, folks warned their children dear to stay away and not go near, and older siblings dared the young to steal a stone and then to run. They say a monster lives in there and eats small children in his lair. But the truth is no one's seen down there at the end of Sycamore Lane. One day, a mother from down the street, baby in arms and kids on her feet, began from house to roam. "Have you seen my Kevin? Is he at your home?" Within a few minutes, it spilled to the street, and 10 other mothers with kids on their feet were searching and calling for Kevin McCrane of Sycamore Lane. The search went from backyards to texts and phone calls. No one had seen Kevin, nobody at all. The search stretched further to neighboring streets and schoolyards and cars. Someone called the police. They took a description of Kevin McCrane of Sycamore Lane. The fathers came home angrily shouting. Dinners went cold, babies unfed, the street filled with people who filled up with dread. They went further and farther in groups and in pairs till they got to the end. And then they all stared at the house sitting dark at the end of the plain of Sycamore Lane. They banged at the door. "Open up!" they did shout. "This is the police!" And then they all looked about. Through dirty, dark windows, they thought they saw there an old man just rocking in an old rocking chair. But then came a cry from the backyard debris. "There's something here, Captain. You'd better come see." The captain ran back there. He stopped. He went numb. On the ground lay a small, bloody thumb. "Open up," they shouted and banged at the door. But the man in the chair didn't move like before. "Knock it down," cried the captain, and they busted it down, piled into the room. There was no sound but a dripping like water and the tick of a clock. And then all together the men from the block and the cops, like one body, in unison all, looked up and beheld what was hung on the wall. The trees grow lush and deep shade green on Sycamore Lane, on Sycamore Lane. The picket fences white and clean on Sycamore Lane. And to the eye it's quite serene, the loveliest place you've ever seen, where evil lurks and children scream bloody murder on Sycamore Lane. Thank you all so much.
Yeah. All right, one last round for this crew, because that's amazing. I promised at the beginning we would start with something that was happening in one of the workshops, and then we would move at the end to something that's happening in another workshop. Next week on May 10th, Thursday evening, we're going to do a screening of the short films that are coming out of Magdalene Brandeis's film editing practicum, and we have a little teaser to show you on Sycamore Lane. No, it's a cheerful teaser, and it's coming right now, so I will direct your attention over to the screen, but pay no mind to the man in front of it, and then we'll mingle. He's hitting play.
With the pits, sorry.
The pits are the master.
Lay it, Peter. That is.
And now we mingle. Thank you, everybody.